All right, get ready for a story that's way more than just some detective tale. We're talking about Renjie.
Renjie.
This legendary figure from the Tang Dynasty. You probably know him as a brilliant crime solver, but
Yeah.
what if I told you the real Renjie was even more fascinating than that?
That's the thing about Renjie, right? History celebrates him as this master detective.
Right.
But then when you actually look at the historical records,
Yeah.
the details about his cases, they're surprisingly thin.
Really?
It's almost like we're missing half the story.
It's a bit of a letdown, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was expecting, like, some epic ancient cold cases with Renjie, like, cracking codes and using all these crazy deduction techniques.
I know.
So how on earth did this image of him, like, as a detective god, how did that even come about?
Well, I think to understand that, we have to think about the cultural context a little bit.
Yeah.
So during the Tang Dynasty, scholar officials, the folks who wrote history, they saw themselves as a cut above what they called the artisan class. So that would be craftsmen, artists, and yes, even detectives. So recording the methods of someone like a detective, even one as famous as Renjie, just wasn't something that they considered worthy of their time, you know?
It's funny how those perceptions of what's important to write down, like, shape how we see history, even centuries later.
Yeah.
But okay, let's ditch the myths for now and dig into the real Renjie. I guess, for starters, there's a recent discovery about his ancestry that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it turns out that Renjie wasn't completely Han Chinese, like most people believe.
Oh.
There have been some tombstones that have been found that actually reveal that his family were originally Qiang people.
Qiang people?
From the Hexi Corridor, so kind of around modern Gansu.
So he was part of a minority group that eventually integrated into Han Chinese culture.
Exactly. They migrated to Taiwan before Renjie's time and gradually became part of the Han Chinese world. And what's interesting is that this level of integration wasn't actually unusual in the Tang Dynasty. It was known for being super cosmopolitan. You know, people from all sorts of backgrounds mixing and mingling.
Yeah.
And that kind of open-minded approach was actually a big part of what made the dynasty's culture so rich.
Yeah.
And it helped their economic prosperity, too.
It's fascinating to think about how, like, individual stories like Renjie's kind of reflect these bigger historical trends.
Yeah.
And even from his early days, it seems like he was destined for great things. He was known for being really smart, bold, and he was known for his calligraphy skills as well.
He was.
Yeah.
There's even an account of Empress Wu Zetian, who was herself a really famous calligrapher, praising his work.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the endorsement, especially considering she was considered like one of the best of her time.
So he had the brains, the guts, the artistic talent.
Had it all.
Not a bad start at all. Let's trace how this all played out in his career. He started, like many officials did, in a fairly low-ranking position, but he climbed the ladder pretty quickly.
He did, and one of the key turning points was the Bianzhu incident.
Okay.
So Renjie was serving as a minor official when a petty official actually accused him of wrongdoing. It seemed like his career might be over.
So how did he get out of this mess?
Well, this is where we meet a really prominent figure, Yan Libin. He was both a super famous painter and a very well-respected statesman. And he stepped in to review the case. And he quickly recognized Renjie's true character.
So Yan Libin was sort of a Renaissance man.
Kind of, yeah.
A painter, politician, and talent scout all in one.
You could say that. He famously said of Renjie, "A pearl from the sea, a treasure left in the southeast."
Oh, wow.
He saw Renjie's potential, and he actually recommended him for a promotion to Bingzhou, which was a significant advancement.
Bingzhou was a pretty big deal back then, wasn't it?
It was. It held a lot of historical weight. Bingzhou, which is modern-day Taiwan, was where Emperor Gaozu of Tang had risen to power, essentially establishing the Tang Dynasty. Yeah. So it was a prestigious post for Renjie, basically putting him in charge of the judicial bureau for a major city.
So Bingzhou is where Renjie really started to make his mark, I guess, as a judicial expert. I imagine he was dealing with all sorts of cases, building up his reputation for being fair and insightful.
He was, absolutely. But beyond his legal expertise, what really set Renjie apart was his exceptional emotional intelligence.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't just about knowing the law. It was about understanding people, navigating complex situations, and he did it with a blend of wisdom and compassion.
Give us an example. What kind of situation showed that side of him?
Well, there's this story about one of Renjie's colleagues who was ordered to serve as an envoy abroad.
Okay.
Which was not an easy gig.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It could be dangerous.
Right.
And in this case, the colleague was dealing with a sick mother he didn't want to leave.
Right, that's a tough call. Duty versus family. What did Renjie do?
He stepped up and volunteered to take his colleague's place. He argued that his colleague should stay and care for his mother. And this selfless act didn't just help his colleague, it had an impact on their superiors, who were actually known for constantly bickering.
Oh.
But seeing Renjie's selflessness actually inspired them to reconcile and start working together more effectively.
Wow, talk about a positive ripple effect.
It really was.
He wasn't just brilliant, he was a genuinely good person
Totally.
who inspired those around him to be better.
Yeah. His time in Bingzhou really highlighted how his emotional intelligence made a positive impact, not just on individual cases, but, on the overall atmosphere and effectiveness of everyone around him.
And this didn't go unnoticed.
It didn't.
Eventually, he landed a major promotion to the Dali Temple in Chang'an. For those who aren't familiar with the Tang Dynasty bureaucracy, this was a really huge deal.
Huge deal, yeah. The Dali Temple was essentially the Supreme Court of the Tang Dynasty.
Okay.
And as deputy minister, Renjie was basically the second in command.
Wow.
A testament to his growing reputation and abilities.
And this is where things get really mind-blowing. It's said that during his time at the Dali Temple, he judged a staggering 17,800 cases in a single year.
It is said, yes.
I mean, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
Was he some sort of superhuman judge working around the clock?
Well, that number has been debated quite a bit, and some historians have questioned its accuracy. But it's important to remember that Renjie was leading a team of officials.
Yeah.
He wasn't single-handedly reviewing every single case.
So he was more like a general commanding an army. You don't expect the general to fight every battle personally, but they're responsible for the overall strategy and outcome.
Precisely. It's about leadership. It's about efficiency.
Yeah.
Renjie was clearly a skilled administrator,
Right.
a delegator.
Yeah.
Managing a massive workload and still ensuring justice was served.
Yeah.
But there was one particular case during his time at the Dali Temple that really cemented his reputation for being absolutely committed to the law, even when facing pressure from the emperor himself.
Sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
This case involved Quan Shankai, who was a high-ranking general who'd committed a serious offense. He cut down a cypress tree
Uh-oh.
at the Zhaoling Mausoleum, the tomb of Emperor Taizong,
Oh, no.
the current emperor's father.
Cutting down a tree at an emperor's tomb? That's got to be the big no-no. I bet Emperor Gazong was furious. What happened next?
Furious doesn't even begin to describe it. He demanded Quan Shankai's immediate execution.
Wow.
But Renjie, after carefully reviewing the case, argued that while Quan Shankai was definitely guilty,
Right.
the crime didn't actually warrant the death penalty,
Yeah.
according to the law.
So he stood up to the emperor. That took some serious guts.
He did.
What did he say?
He famously told the emperor, "A wise ruler can be persuaded by reason, but a loyal minister will not be intimidated."
Wow.
He even went so far as to compare the emperor to, legendary sage rulers Yao and Shun,
Oh, wow.
basically challenging him to live up to their high standards.
So he was putting his own neck on the line?
He was.
For what he believed was right. So did the emperor back down?
He did. Emperor Gaozong eventually rescinded his order.
Wow.
Quan Shankai was spared the death penalty.
Oh.
This incident really showcased Renjie's unwavering integrity and, his commitment to justice, even when facing that kind of pressure. It also marked the moment when Empress Wu Zetian first took notice of this very principled official.
Empress Wu. Now that's a whole other chapter in Tang Dynasty history.
Sure.
Her rise to power was full of intrigue and controversy. How did Renjie, a staunch Confucian official, manage to navigate those turbulent times, especially under someone like Wu Zetian?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Wu Zetian's reign was a period of, great upheaval,
Right.
marked by rebellions and constant political maneuvering. Renjie played a key role in handling the aftermath of these events,
Okay.
demonstrating both his loyalty and his ability to think practically and adapt to these complex situations.
For example, I read about the Shujinji Rebellion, where Wu Zetian supposedly received the rebel leader's head, but there were rumors swirling that he had actually escaped.
Well,
Was Renjie involved in that whole mess?
absolutely. Wu Zetian, unsure if the head was really Shu Jingyi's, sent Renjie south to investigate.
Okay.
His mission was to uncover the truth and to, restore order in this region that was just full of rumors and unrest.
And wasn't there something about him abolishing a bunch of unauthorized sacrifices during this time?
Yes.
That seems like a risky move, meddling with people's religious beliefs.
Well, these weren't just any sacrifices. Renjie specifically targeted those dedicated to figures like Shang Yu,
Okay.
a historical figure who had rebelled against the Han Dynasty, centuries earlier.
Right.
So, by tearing down Shang Yu's ancestral hall, Renjie was making a statement about loyalty to the current regime.
Right.
And he was trying to kind of undercut any potential support for future rebellions.
It's like he was playing some multi-dimensional game of chess, tackling political intrigue,
Yeah.
religious sensitivities, maintaining order, and all while navigating this volatile,
Toy.
constantly shifting landscape. What a high-pressure job.
And it didn't stop there. When members of the Tang Dynasty's Imperial clan rebelled in Shandong and Hannan, Wu Zetian again turned to Renjie to handle the situation.
Right.
But this time, his dedication to justice would lead to a direct clash with the Empress's thirst for vengeance. So those rebellions in Shandong and Hannan really put Renjie in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Empress Wu, as you can imagine, was not messing around.
Right.
She wanted to crush any sign of dissent.
Yeah.
She issued orders for mass executions.
So you've got Wu Zetian wanting to make an example of anyone who challenged her.
Right.
And Renjie, this man who's known for his fairness and commitment to the law. Sounds like a recipe for a major showdown.
It was. Wu Zetian sent Renjie to Yuzhou,
Okay.
one of the regions hit hardest by the rebellion. And she gave him a list of thousands of people slated for execution.
Oh, wow.
But Renjie, being Renjie,
Right.
wasn't just going to blindly follow orders.
He actually took the time to investigate each case. Talk about a commitment to due process.
Oh, yeah.
What did he find?
Well, his investigation revealed that most of the people on the list were either innocent or had been forced into joining the rebellion.
Wow.
Only a tiny number were really deserving of the death penalty, according to the law.
So he was going up against not just the Empress's direct orders, but also, I imagine, like a wave of public fear and anger
Oh, absolutely.
in the wake of these rebellions. What did he do?
He did what he always did. He stuck to his principles.
Yeah.
He basically put his own life on the line to plead with Wu Zetian to spare these people.
That's incredible. It's like something out of a movie. Did she listen?
She did.
Wow.
Which I think says a lot about the respect she had for Renjie's judgment,
Yeah.
even when it went against what she wanted.
Right.
Because of his stance, he saved thousands of lives.
He was a hero, standing up for justice, saving innocent people from, the executioner.
Yeah.
It's easy to see him as like a purely righteous figure
Right.
in this situation.
While his actions were heroic, I think his time in Yuzhou also shows us the complicated realities of power
Okay.
and the tough choices people in authority have to make.
Right.
It's not always just right and wrong.
What do you mean? Wasn't he doing the right thing by protecting those people?
Morally, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But while he was in Yuzhou, he also clashed with the military forces that had been sent to put down the rebellion.
Oh.
They were demanding provisions from the local population, which was a huge problem.
Right.
Resources were already stretched thin.
So Renjie confronted the military as well. This guy never backed down.
He didn't. But this time, it went differently. Wu Zetian sided with the military.
Really?
She even demoted Renjie for a bit.
Wait, she demoted him after he saved all those lives?
It was a calculated move, a matter of political necessity.
Okay.
You see, Wu Zetian was consolidating her power,
Right.
and she needed to look strong,
Yeah.
maintain the military support.
Yeah.
Punishing them for demanding provisions would have sent the wrong message.
So even doing what seems like the right thing can sometimes have unintended consequences,
It can.
especially in a complex political situation like that. So Renjie was caught in this web of competing interests
Yeah.
and had to deal with a situation where there were no easy answers.
Exactly. His demotion wasn't personal. It was a strategic move by Wu Zetian
Okay.
to keep things stable. But her respect for Renjie is obvious.
Yeah.
She quickly reinstated him
Okay.
to an important position.
It seems like she recognized his value, even if she had to kind of sideline him for a while.
Yeah.
With Wu Zetian declaring herself empress, breaking with centuries of tradition, how did Renjie, this staunch Confucian scholar, reconcile himself to serving under her?
That's a question that continues to fascinate historians.
Yeah.
On one hand, he served her loyally
Right.
and effectively. But on the other hand, He never wavered in his commitment to Confucian principles, which, emphasized a patriarchal social order.
Right.
How could he support a female ruler and stay true to these beliefs?
It's like he was constantly trying to find this balance between his personal beliefs and the realities of the world around him. Did he see Wu Zetian as a legitimate ruler? Was he trying to influence her from within?
Those are great questions to think about.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Renjie so fascinating. He wasn't just a detective or a politician. He was a man of principle trying to navigate a world of constantly shifting power dynamics and moral ambiguities.
It's a reminder that history isn't always black and white.
It's not.
There are so many shades of gray, especially when we're talking about people who operated within these complex systems of power. We've seen his intelligence, his courage, his commitment to justice, but also the compromises he had to make. It's fascinating to see how he managed to stay true to himself in those incredibly complex political waters. It really makes you wonder, was he able to affect any real change within a system where the Empress held absolute power?
That's the big question. Right?
Yeah.
Renjie was working within a system that was really designed to favor the ruler.
Right.
Even with all his influence and integrity, there were limits to what he could actually achieve.
It raises an interesting point. Even when he was doing good, like protecting people, upholding the law, was he ultimately just propping up a system that was, often unjust at its core?
That's a really good question, and it's one for all of you listening to think about.
Yeah.
Was Renjie like a true reformer, working to change the system from within? Or was he just a skilled operator who managed to create little pockets of justice in a system that was fundamentally flawed?
Yeah.
There's no easy answer.
It's these shades of gray, the lack of simple answers that I think make history so compelling.
They do.
We came into this deep dive wanting to uncover the real Renjie, the man behind the legendary detective stories. And I think we've done that.
I think so, too.
We've seen his brilliance, his courage, his compassion, and even his flaws. He was a complex individual who defied easy categorization.
He did. And that's the beauty of exploring history.
Yeah.
It's not just about memorizing names and dates. It's about uncovering these human stories filled with triumphs and failures and moral dilemmas and questions that still resonate with us today.
Renjie's story definitely does that.
Yeah.
It forces us to think about the nature of power, the limits of what one person can do, and the compromises we sometimes have to make when we're trying to achieve justice.
It also highlights how important it is to understand the historical context, right?
Right.
We can't judge figures from the past by today's standards.
Right.
We have to consider the world they lived in.
Yeah.
The challenges they faced, the choices they made within those limitations.
We've only scratched the surface of this fascinating life and the era in which he lived. If you're interested in what we've discussed today, I encourage you to learn more, do some research, and come to your own conclusions about Renjie's legacy.
There's always more to learn, more perspectives to consider, and more connections to make. History is an ongoing journey of discovery, and Renjie is just one of many incredible figures waiting to be rediscovered.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the life and legacy of Renjie. We hope you've enjoyed it and that it sparked your curiosity to explore more. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and join us next time as we dive into another fascinating topic.